What does it matter if you hate yourself? At least love your eyes that can see and your mind that can hear the music, the thunder of the wings. Well, hey up, welcome back, or welcome for the first time if it's your first time. And today, well, a few things today, but what I'm going to do basically is give you the benefit of my experience on this fabulous little Royal Enfield Classic 350. And I suppose you'd call it a long-term real-world review. I will be doing a walk around, but I won't be spouting off facts and figures on that walk around. I'll just touch on one or two numbers, because with a bike like this they're not really relevant. But we'll come on to that. So we're just in the middle of Otley now, and before too long I'll be taking you through some fabulous Yorkshire countryside, because today this serves another purpose, and that is by way of a therapeutic exercise. Because one quality that this bike has in spades is the ability to lift your spirits when they're a bit down. And of course motorcyclists are as vulnerable to mental health issues as any other man or woman in society. And some weeks can just get you down. I don't get me wrong, I don't suffer. I'm very glad I don't suffer from depression. Even in some very, very dark moments in life, I can't ever say that I've been clinically depressed. My mum used to suffer from it terribly, depression. But so far, not me. But we all have dark moments, don't we, in life? And this week, the week just gone, there's just been a shit week basically. That were nearly even worse there, wasn't it? If he'd have pulled out like he were going to do. So it's been a shit week. Pardon my French, but I can't think of another word that succinctly describes how it's panned out. And I think I started off in the wrong frame of mind, because first thing I saw on news on Monday, Monday or Tuesday or whenever it was that news story rather regarding the mini exploration submarine that vanished whilst diving with how many people were on board? Was it 5 people on board diving to explore the wreckage of the Titanic? And when I first saw that news item, and I'm sure it occurred to a lot of you as well, and I'm no marine expert by any stretch of the imagination, all you can do is apply a modicum of common sense to the information that's imparted to you. But when I first saw that news item, that this thing, about an hour and a half or whatever into to its dive, and it were going down 2 miles or more, that all communication, all telemetry, everything was just suddenly lost, gone. And my first thought there were, Christ, that thing's just disintegrated, hasn't it? It's imploded. Because that's the most logical explanation, isn't it? A catastrophic loss. And so by the end of the week, it transpired that indeed is what it was. But I'm sure the great and good knew that all along. But the bloody media does my Swede in this. The bloody media stretched that out in a ghoulish, theatrical way, for purposes solely of selling a few more papers, getting a few more audience figures. And I dropped on GMTV, because on GMTV, which is about the only, you know, I very occasionally drop into it because I am up and about very early in the morning. And a morning slot, they usually have a bit of a political debate, and it's well worth watching. Likes of Kevin Maguire and Andrew Pearce rip lumps out of each other, both of them talking absolute bollocks. But it's entertaining, but no. And it wasn't exclusive to GMTV this week. But it's all they wanted to cover every morning. And this ridiculous bit of theatre about how much oxygen is left and what are the chances of recovery and what sort of vessel can go down and bring them back and all of that. And it was just a bit of mindless theatre, for the sole purposes of bringing entertainment to people who, for some inexplicable reason, find that sort of thing gripping and compelling and entertaining. So that started winding me up from day one. It is a tragedy, of course it is, but to drag out something like that, I can think of no other circumstance anywhere at any time where the plight and sadly the death now of 5 people would preoccupy the broadcast and print media for as long as it did. And yeah, it's none of my business and all of that, but I just found it absolutely ghoulish. So that put me in the wrong frame of mind from day one, really. And then we're doing battle with E.ON, the energy provider. What a set of shysters they are, let me tell you. Bear in mind, I'm talking about a 3-bedroom semi-detached house with 2 occupants and a dog, where the vast majority of the time only one room is heated. Right, so comes to the bill. First bill comes through the door. Bear in mind, pay by direct debit. Pay a lot by direct debit, I hasten to add. Your account, you owe us £6,000. Yeah, I kid you not, £6,000 since the last meter reading, like 6 months ago. So obviously challenged it and said, look, don't be ridiculous. The only gas supply we've got is to the boiler. The rest is electric. And apart from 2 showers a day, I can't for the life of me think how we've managed to use industrial levels of electricity and gas. So we're obviously a load of bollocks. Oh, we'll look into it. And it might be a faulty meter, it might be this, it might be that. Fair enough. So they conduct an investigation, and that investigation does not include sending somebody out to check the meter to see if it's working properly. They don't bother with that. They just gave it a couple of days and sent us another email which basically said your electricity meter has reached the end of its life. Now the backdrop of this is for the last few years have been trying to force a smart meter on us, and I wasn't having it. I didn't want a smart meter. I don't want an internet connected device in our house that's part and parcel of the energy supply network. And nobody can be obliged to have a smart meter. So I've resisted it like buggery. So that's the backdrop. So then when they said, oh, we've concluded our investigation, and it transpires your electricity meter and your gas meter have reached the end of their life, implying very, very strongly thereby that the reason for those massively inflated, ridiculous meter readings and that £6,000 bill were down to the fact that the meter's bollocks basically reached the end of its life. So we need to put your smart meter in. So for me being a cynical old sod, I just thought this is just a bloody ploy, isn't it, to get us to put a smart meter in. But I thought by that time I'd had enough. I thought, screw it. I didn't say screw it, I said something else, but so, no, I've had enough. Put it in, whatever. And so yeah, they did. They put it in, and then day after gets another bill, another email, and it's gone from £6,000 to £12,000. I kid you not. So in space, so between May and July this year, I think basically 1 month and 2 days it works out at, we've used £6,000 worth of electricity and gas in the middle of a heat wave. And there's no air conditioning, in the middle of a heat wave, in a 3-bedroomed semi-detached house of modest proportions. £6,000 worth of gas and electric? I don't think so, pal. So that wound me up even more, because I'm convinced it's just a ploy to make us have it, basically, for resisting smart meter for God knows how many years. So they're continuing to investigate. I can't wait for the outcome of this one. Anyway, so that were that. So that wound me up. But that all pales into insignificance, because then I hears that my good friend Chris, and if you go back enough videos, you'll see 1 or 2 where I'm out and about on the bike with Chris, fellow biker, well into his 70s is Chris, bless him. And I finds out that he's been rushed into ICU, into the intensive care unit, which really, really rocked me. And I suppose, you know, certainly puts that second issue well and truly into context, doesn't it? Which, as far as I know, is where he still is. So Chris, my friend, and what can I tell you about Chris? An absolutely gentle, generous and genial soul who's just fun to be around with. I ain't got a bad word to say about anybody. And my good friend. So Chris, I know you watch the channel from time to time, and I can't begin to imagine what you're going through at the moment. And I know I'm not a religious person, and I know that you are a gentleman of faith, though, so my thoughts and prayers sincerely are with you at this time. So as you can imagine, all in all then, could have been better, couldn't it? So I'm out for a bit of therapy. I'm sorry to get that rather morose summary of the week in early doors, but it's to give context to the rest, which is about how a ride out on a bike like this can actually lift your spirits when when they're a bit down after a bad week, which it's doing already, this bike. So yeah, so I think I've had this bike now, it'll be about 10 months or so, and it's been a joy, an absolute joy. This one's in Halcyon Green, and I genuinely believe that the Royal Enfield Classic 350 is the most classic of modern classics by a country mile. It's a beautiful looking thing, it's a work of art. Yeah, so I've had this bike about 10 months now, and it's been an absolute gem, and I just think it's the best looking of all the modern classics by a country mile. But when you're doing a review, you've really got to be able to articulate why somebody else might want to acquire such a bike, and I can think of so many reasons. And one thing I'm not going to do, because I was going to do it, and I've done it in the past, but I've just realised it's a load of bollocks, and that is my 5 favourite things, or 5 things I love about the Royal Enfield Classic 350, 5 things I hate about this bike, 5 best things about that bike. You've seen them do it. Missenden Flyer used to do it a lot. I don't know if he still does, because I don't watch it anymore. Well, I just find it so bloody patronising, that. It's patronising, it's condescending, I think. You might as well stand in front of the blackboard with a pointer. I don't think people need your thoughts sort of laid out numerically. And there's often like a countdown, isn't there, from 5 to 1 or 10 out of 1 and a drum roll at the end. What a load of old bollocks. So I'm just going to tell you why I love the bike, basically. And I nearly missed my turn off then. This is it, you see. I cannot multitask. I can't speak to you. I can't speak to you and ride at the same time. I did that up at Semawater, if you remember, at the end of that video. Any road, we're just coming down to Thrush Reservoir now. This is quite spectacular as we go over the bridge, so keep your eyes peeled for that. It's coming up shortly. Yeah, so I'm not going to do that. It's just patronising and condescending. You know, the 5 bullet points. But yeah, this bike to me, it's a work of art. Here we come, Thrush Reservoir. Just have a look at this here view as we go over the tops here. I'll give you a left and a right. A view left. Tell you what, there's no shortage of water in this neck of woods. Kent and Sussex. There you go. Those poor buggers now. Hosepipe ban. 2 days into summer, hosepipe ban. Yeah, privatised water companies. Say no more. Right, that's for another day. Yeah, so this bike, I think it is a work of art. Somebody's actually sat down and conceived of this, and thrown in just the right amount of retro into a modern bike to make it sparkle. Yeah, work of art, like a piece of jewellery. Having said that, when I sit on it, it transforms from being a work of art. When I'm sat on it, it looks like something that's dropped out of my arse. I can do that to any bike, but I'm 6'1", and this is quite a diminutive bike, really. It's a small bike, relatively speaking. So that's what it looks like when I get on top of it. And do you remember when Top Gear, back when Clarkson, May and Hammond were doing it? Don't get me wrong, not a lot of time for Clarkson. I think he's a bell end basically, but he certainly brought something to that show, which has not been there since. But back in the day, there was a thing called a cockometer. Do you remember that cockometer? And basically, with this fictional device, and you drove past it, and depending on how much of a cock you looked in a particular car, it used to give you a readout from 1 to 10. And so I think if I had a cocometer when I'm on this bike, thank you, sir. If I had a cocometer when I'm on this bike, it'd be bending needle. What do you get for your money with this? Well, the engine, it's a single cylinder air cooled engine and it puts out 20 brake horsepower at 6,500 RPM, believe it is, and it puts out 27 newton meters of torque at 4,500 RPM, something like that. It's enough. It's enough for this kind of bike. And I've heard claims that it'll do 100 mile a gallon. Well, it's a let me see, 13 litre fuel tank, so theoretically 300 mile from a tank. Pretty good. It's got a 19-inch front wheel, 18-inch rear wheel, spoked, tubed, single disc up front, 300mm with a 2-pot bi-bray caliper, and on the back a 270mm single disc with a single pot bi-bray caliper. Those are your brakes. Suspension, front standard telescopic forks, 41mm, 130mm of travel. The rear twin shock absorbers at the rear with preload adjustment. That's the only adjustment on the suspension on this bike, and there's 80mm rather of travel at the back. Comes complete with a centre stand, very useful for chain maintenance. CI 805mm, so very accessible to people who are a bit short in the leg, shall we say. And comes in some cracking colours. This is my favourite, of course, halcyon green, but you can get halcyon blue and halcyon black, and you can get an all black one and a black and red one, and some military style colours called signals, so plenty of choice of colourways. And I don't think there's a better looking bike in its category anywhere to be had. That's pretty much all I'm going to say about numbers. It don't particularly interest me. It's about how the bike feels and what it looks like. And the beauty of this bike is this. See, if I were out on my Pan-European, where I've got a 1300cc V4 engine and I've got bags and bags of power on tap, so I'm constantly thinking, you know, where's my next overtaking opportunity, where's the next long straight piece of road where I can let rip, and all of those thoughts, and you're more engaged in the ride itself than the landscape through which you're riding. And that, to a certain extent, that's true of the Interceptor. But you can't do that on this bike, really. So what that allows you to do is sit back, let the bike do the work, and take in your surroundings. Well, what's the point of a walk around? And what's the point in going into any great detail about the nuts and bolts of a bike as beautiful as that? What an absolute work of art. And very much at home here in the English countryside, and a bike well and truly in its element. You know, when I were a kid, I used to like doing jigsaws back in the 1970s. Remember those big jigsaws you could get with thousands of pieces in them, cardboard pieces, usually of a landscape or a cityscape or something. And I used to like to start at the edges and build my way in to the centre. And the trick was to get to the very last piece, and for that last piece to be right in the centre of the jigsaw, of the landscape. And this bike, this Royal Enfield Classic 350, it's a bit like that really. When you bring it up to somewhere like this on the moors, it's a bit like putting that final piece in the jigsaw and really completing the picture, because it just so looks at home, doesn't it? There's a quote that I like from an American poet called Robinson Jeffers, and he said, what does it matter if you hate yourself? At least love your eyes that can see and your mind that can hear the music, the thunder of the wings. And I think that's the way to look at life when you're trying to beat yourself up. Yeah, I reckon he were a pretty insightful chap. You know, and I talked earlier about this bike being a work of art, and I think it absolutely is a work of automotive art, without a doubt. And it sort of raises the question, what is art? And the famous landscape photographer Ansel Adams beautifully described what he regarded as art. And I'll just read this to you. It's a wonderful piece of writing. He said, "It's a desire to give. It is not charity, which is the giving of things. It is more than kindness, which is the giving of self. It is both the taking and giving of beauty, the turning out to the light of the inner folds of the awareness of the spirit. It is a recreation on another plane of the realities of the world, the tragic and wonderful realities of earth and men, and of all the interactions of these." Now that certainly makes you think. So in conclusion then, what's my down-to-earth, honest review of this bike? Well, let's put it this way. I don't think there's a better bike on the planet for this landscape. I don't think there's a better bike on the planet more at home in this, the English landscape. It's made for it. It's like a part of a Constable or a Turner painting. It's out of place, yet it's not out of place. It's that final piece in that jigsaw. And more than anything else, this bike just makes you feel good. It's a bike that's so easy to bring out somewhere like this and collect your thoughts. Where would you rather be? Right, so there we are then, a bit of a combined bike review and therapy session. Done me the world of good. I hope it's helped you maybe in some respects as well. If you're going to come out here, what better bike to come out on? The Royal Enfield Classic 350. I don't know what else to say about the bike. £4,500 worth of sheer enjoyment, day in, day out. Who cares about the numbers? It's brilliant. All right, that's it for today. So if you've watched this far, thank you as ever for so doing. And until the next time, from the heart of the Yorkshire Dales, ride safe, be kind, and I'll catch you soon. Toodle pip.